Welcome back to another weekly wrap-up video, this being week 11 of the Delaware General Assembly. My name is Matt Revel, and I'm the Director of Policy and Communications for the Delaware State Senate Republican Caucus. And today, I am joined with Senator Gerald Hocker. Senator, how are you?
Good. Glad to be here today.
Well, I especially like this because you are my senator in the 20th District.
You're state senator. You're the one that keeps me on the right path in the 20th Senatorial District.
Well, I try anyway. So I wanted to discuss one bill in particular, Senate Bill 18, which is yours. Why don't you kind of describe what that does?
Senate Bill 18 is a bill that allows the state of Delaware to sell an unblended fuel, mainly non-ethanol. Ethanol is a problem to small engines and boat motors. What it does, it creates an algae by sitting, and the algae creates a gum, and the gum eats the rubber out, mainly out of the carburetors. Your small engine technicians and your outboard motor technicians say about 90% of the repairs are because of ethanol fuel. This has been a ongoing problem since Governor Ruth Ann Minner, when she was forced to put in the ethanol fuel because of the air quality in Newcastle County only. She brought it for the entire state, which was rightfully so, but at that time they didn't realize the damage it does to these small two-cycle engines. Knowing that damage, I've been working since really been elected trying to correct that problem. I had a good working relationship to Senate Secretary Colin O'Mara, and really was working with Governor Markell on trying to come up with a program to offer this engine. We even talked about, separate pumps and separate nozzles so cars couldn't burn it, and I thought we had a good game plan. And then Secretary O'Mara moved on, we got a new governor, and it's really been held up, this piece of legislation. I introduced this same legislation on the 149th General Assembly on next to the last week of the first year of the two-year General Assembly, and went to Secretary Garvin and told him I got this bill introduced. I don't plan on working it until after summer. It gives you through the summer to study the bill and see if you can come up with a plan that we can all like and pass. I never heard a word from him. Representative Gray was the House sponsor, I was the Senate sponsor. We asked for a meeting. Secretary Garvin brought a meeting in our Georgetown office, brought a fellow with him, and I thought we were going to come up with a game plan. And the fellow that he brought with him, I can't remember his name, really destroyed that game plan because his statement was ethanol fuel does not damage small engines or outboard motors. With that, it sort of took the wind out of our sails because there was no working out with Secretary Garvin. I went back and told some of the small engine repair guys, and I have one. I have a small engine repair shop, and the marine engineers that were right across from one of my stores, and they used words describing what was said at that meeting that I can't say in this video. But yesterday we had the bill in committee. We had 9 people testify, and I kept holding the bill up because I was hoping we could come back in person. And I had several people wanted to come testify, and we weren't able to have the public in the chamber, so it was a Zoom meeting. I had 9 people testify in favor of the legislation. There was only one testimony against the legislation, and that was our Secretary Garvin. We are a tourism industry, really, an ag industry, and I don't want to hurt ag, but you're not taking enough corn out of production by doing away with the ethanol gas for what little we're talking about. And the reason why I say what little we're talking about, many, and we had the testimony yesterday, take gas cans, 5-gallon gas cans down just across the state line and buy the fuel. And many boat owners that I know that burn, hundreds of gallons of fuel a day go from Indian River Inlet or Delaware slips down to Ocean City, fill their boats up. Delaware is missing, several tax dollars, and we're still burning it anyway. And the farmers are still not, benefiting from the ethanol blended gas because these people are not using it. That was testified to yesterday in a big way. So with that, I was very shocked to learn today that the bill did get out of committee. It will have a full Senate vote, and at that time, hopefully the chamber will be open for public meetings, and when we have it on the Senate floor, I hope to have several there testifying the need for an unblended fuel.
You mentioned just earlier that other surrounding states do allow for the sale of this, correct?
Especially in Maryland. I have a getaway place in Cambridge, and I went by a station, on the way to our place, and I saw a truck out there with several cans and with a Delaware tag. I wish I had taken a picture and asked him why he was buying so much fuel, but he was buying the unblended fuel there, and it is marked. And I'll guarantee you it was for boaters. There's a big boat basin there that has several boats right across the Maryland line into Delaware, and I would almost guarantee, to this day, I wish I had stopped and asked him where that fuel was going, but it was, non-ethanol fuel.
Well, as you mentioned, it did get out of committee, so I'm sure we'll be hearing a little bit more about that.
It did get out of committee. I was very shocked. There was only one favorable vote in the committee, and that was our committee chair, and I was surprised that she even let it out of committee. But we had a lot of good testimony at that committee hearing, and I think some of the ones that were reluctant about the bill prior to going in committee hearing saw the other side and the need for it.
Now, the other big news that kind of came out this week that really affects the small businesses in your district, but the lifting of capacity restrictions in small businesses and restaurants, but also the lifting of the mask mandate. What kind of impact do you believe the pandemic and the restrictions imposed by the governor had on the businesses there?
Lifting the restriction on restaurants is going to have a huge impact. Our restaurants on the resort area last year were just crippled and killed. Some of them, are going to have a rough time making it. They said if they don't have an extremely good year this year, they're in financial trouble. So that had a huge impact. And then lifting the capacity in the restaurants allowed them to put tables back and go to full capacity. And even the full capacity in a restaurant, where they upgraded their outside patios, it's going to give them that. So I look for the restaurants that have a banner year this year. Getting to the mask, employees hate masks. You wear a mask for 8 hours. It's very disturbing, and it's not good on their health to breathe that in all day long. And hopefully, starting tomorrow, I have informed my employees that if they're vaccinated, they do not have to wear them. But what created a problem this week was CDC coming out that you didn't have to wear a mask anymore. And our governor didn't stop it in the state. We had customers coming in saying, no, we don't need masks anymore. It was causing really us to break the law by not saying something to them. But I told my employees that they weren't to question anybody that didn't have a mask on. And I'm not going to question anybody tomorrow if they've been vaccinated or not. I'm giving them the privilege to, they're on the honor system.
Now, what has the response been to small business owners in your district kind of in the wake of this announcement?
Oh, they want to have a bonfire and a bonfire party. They hate them. But, when you have doctors telling you that, and a good example was an illustration. A doctor, said to me, he said, you take your mask off, you put it in your pocket, you take your hands, you take it out of your pocket, you put it back on your face, you go home, you throw it on the counter, you take it off the counter, you put it back on your face, or you get in your automobile, you throw it on a dash. Said, if people realized what they were breathing in those masks, they're doing more harm to their body than they would have had no mask on at all. And he said, if people think they keep away germs, he said, let's describe it as putting rat wire to a window to keep mosquitoes out.
All right, Senator. Well, just thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. It was a privilege.
Yeah, no, it was an absolute pleasure talking to you. So now we'll have Senator Bonini from the 16th District. Senator Bonini, 16th District. Sir, how are you?
Good, good. Thanks for having me.
So I wanted to get your thoughts. So some big news came out this week regarding DFAC.
Right.
So I guess before we get into the nuts and bolts and the numbers, what exactly does DFAC do?
So what DFAC was put together in the 1970s under Governor DuPont. He did lots of amazing things for Delaware. This was one of them. And what it does is it's a combination of political folks, private sector folks, and economists, and they come together and put together estimates on how much state revenue that we're going to be having in the future. And it's a way to try to plan for the future for state spending. So when people say, "Oh, what's the DFAC number?" what they mean is how much money is available for the state government to spend. And the big news this last week is that number is almost a joke. It's so big. The federal government, as you know, is beyond irresponsible in spending. I don't know how else to say that. And a lot of that money is coming to the state. Plus, the way that our revenues work, even though the economy hasn't been great, our revenues tend to follow a little behind because we have all of the business taxes and all those kind of things. That our state revenue actually tends to be a year or two behind the economic cycle. So prior to COVID, we were having a great economy, right? And so businesses were they're actually paying taxes on those revenues. That all comes to the state of Delaware, and we have. So the DFAC estimate is it's close to $1 billion of extra money, quote unquote extra money. I made a joke at the meeting that if we could somehow hide this from my colleagues, that would be the best. But unfortunately, I think the word got out.
So has there been any word what they're going to do with that extra $1 billion?
Yeah. So of course, my idea was to return it to the taxpayers who gave it to us. We have a couple of bills. I think a couple of our colleagues, Senator Lawson and Representative Collins, have a tax rate reduction bill. I am working on a bill that would be a tax rebate bill that would rebate those folks who actually paid income taxes. Unfortunately, as you know, the General Assembly is controlled by Democrats who are unlikely to pass any tax rebates or tax cuts. So the chances are the state government's going to spend it. I think our job is to make sure that as much money as possible, if we can't give it back to the taxpayers, which is my first preference, I think our job is to push as hard as we can to make sure that at least the money's set aside for future use, as much of that as we can. Because as you know, revenue goes up and down, up and down, up and down. And in those years where we have lower revenue figures, as opposed to raising taxes or which is what the Democrats would want to do, it'd be good to have this fund of money to be able to fill in the shortfall. So I think the other critical piece, and I think this is absolutely critical, is the politicians are going to spend the money. We're going to do the best we can to make sure they don't, but let's be honest, they're most likely to spend the money. But it's critical that money not get spent on operations. Because if you create a new program, that program, as Ronald Reagan said, immortality is a government program, right? Nobody's immortal except the government program, never stops. If you build it into the operating budget, if you put money into the operating budget or create a new program, it has to get funded every year. And we're not going to have this kind of massive revenue every year. This is basically a one-time deal. So I actually think it's critical that A, give it back to taxpayers, B, set aside as much as possible for future needs, and then C, whatever we do spend, let's spend it on one-time items. And when I say one-time items, that basically means capital. So buildings, maintenance, basic infrastructure, those kind of brick and mortar type of expenditures. And I actually think that's pretty good investment when you spend money that way.
I know another topic that's been of extremely importance to you is the recent case regarding reassessment.
Oh boy, yeah. That is a firestorm waiting to happen, and I'm actually kind of surprised. I know my colleagues in the Republican Caucus are, we've talked about it, but I'm surprised it hasn't gotten more of a high-profile attention. That is going to be an absolute firestorm. Basically, the Chancery Court is mandating that the county, through a court decision, is mandating that the counties reassess their properties. And that is going to lead, I know that is going to lead to, this is just my opinion, that is going to lead to massive property tax increases for lots and lots and lots of Delawareans. And I don't think anybody's prepared for that. I think it's wrong, by the way. I think if you want to tax people of Delaware, you should run for election, come down here and pass a bill. I thought that's how the process worked, but we instead have a court that's going to come in and tell us what to do. I'm never a fan of that. I think we got to go, the elected representatives of the people, the ones who should be making those decisions. And I think when that court case comes in and says it's going to force reassessment on the counties are going to reassess. And let's just be clear, people's property taxes are going to go up, and some people's property taxes are going to go up a whole lot. And they're not expecting it. We haven't been talking about it very much. And I think we should do everything we can to try to either lessen that blow for taxpayers or make it so it doesn't happen. And as you know, I'm working on some legislation, not just me, other Republicans are working on legislation to try to A, lessen that blow, but B, more importantly, try to make it so it doesn't happen.
Well, Senator, as you know, we have a number of folks coming down from, say, New York, New Jersey,
right,
coming to Delaware because of our low property taxes, no sales tax, things of that nature. What kind of impact would this have on those folks that are either here now or them coming, and what could it possibly do to their economy?
Yeah, no, it's very good questions. I always joke, as folks from New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and New York and Maryland, wonderful people, so I always say, welcome, please don't bring your taxes with you. And you're right, a lot of folks are moving here because of our tax structure, which is quite, comparatively quite low. And I'll tell you, it's very concerning because it's a big part of our economy, especially downstate. I mean, if you look at Kent and Sussex counties, home building and the construction trades, that's a huge part of our economy. And quite frankly, if our taxes go way up, we're not going to be as attractive a place for people to come and move here. And that's going to have tremendous effects on our economy. And also I think I'm concerned, a lot of people have come here with the understanding that their taxes are going to be pretty low. That's why they came here, right? And they're participating in our economy, I tell you, when their taxes go up, which I think, barring I think people need to be ready for that. I think that's a little bit of a betrayal, right? I think, and it's particularly insulting to me because it won't be the representatives of the people doing it. It'll be through this sort of court case. And so I think we need to be prepared for that, and I think we need to be much more proactive in trying to make sure that folks don't get that big surprise, because if we raise taxes significantly, property taxes significantly, I think a lot of those folks you just mentioned, they're going to stop coming, and then those jobs that are associated with that, it's going to be a tough situation.
Well, Senator, thank you for keeping an eye out on this situation and kind of bringing it to the forefront, like you mentioned. It hasn't really been
it hasn't been particularly high profile, but I think in the next few weeks you're going to see our caucus, Republican caucus, which you know about, and I think some of the other Republican colleagues. I think you're going to see in the next several weeks efforts to bring attention to that issue, and hopefully we can create some public pressures to lessen the impact.
Well, Senator Bonini, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and thank you, Senator Hocker, for joining as well. And thank you for watching these every week. Be sure to like our social media pages, sign up for Senator Bonini's newsletter and those other newsletters from members of our caucus. We're going to be taking a couple weeks here for Joint Finance Committee hearings in Bonneville.
In Bonneville, right, in the capital budget.
Yes. So we will be seeing you in a couple weeks. But thank you for watching.